Now, this is all important context for reading that passage I singled out for you in the first lecture, where Beowulf returns to Jotland and talks about the marriage of Hrothgar's daughter Freywaru to Ingeld. So just to refresher, Beowulf says that sometimes Hrothgar's daughter distributed ale to the older ranks in order on the benches. Beowulf heard the company call her Freywaru as she made the rounds, presenting men with a gem-studded bowl, the young bride-to-be to the gracious Ingeld in her gold-trimmed attire. Again, Ingeld is the leader of a group that are feuding with Hrothgar. Hrothgar favors Freywaru's betrothal to Ingeld. The guardian of the kingdom sees good in it and hopes this woman will heal old wounds and grievous feuds. This hope of Hrothgar that Freywaru and Ingeld will, that this will end the feud is, in light of what we've seen about him, it seems like a further sign of his wishful thinking, his inability to stop Grendel, his unsureness about what to do when Ashura is killed. This indecisive quality of Hrothgar is connected to his belief that, hey, if Freywaru and Ingeld get married, then that'll fix everything. Beowulf, on the other hand, the more decisive one, the one who sees this sort of inevitability of cycles of violence, he is the one who says, generally the spear is prompt to retaliate when a prince is killed, no matter how admirable the bride may be. And after Beowulf makes this point, he goes into this really amazing scene where he imagines what this marriage of Freywaru to Ingeld will be like. He has this sort of prediction, which is really very remarkable, so it's worth talking about for a second. Beowulf says, think about how the Heathobards, Ingeld's people, think about how they're going to feel when their lord Ingeld and his loyal thanes are sitting there, and Hrothgar and his men walk in with that woman to the feast. You're going to have everybody there together at a wedding, at a party, which is supposed to be fun, but there are people on both sides who've killed relatives of people on the other sides. There's going to be an old spearman, a warrior, a Heathobard, who's going to speak while they're drinking, and he's going to test a young man's temper and stir up trouble. He's going to say something like, "Hey, my friend, don't you recognize your father's sword, his favorite weapon? And now here's the son of one or other of those same killers coming through our hall, overbearing us, mouthing boasts, and rigged in armor that by right is yours." One of Hrothgar's men is going to come in with the sword that, like they just wear swords to dinner, and he's going to have a sword that his father collected from the body of a dead Heathobard. He's probably not even going to know. But the old warrior is going to recognize it, and he's going to find that guy's son, and he's going to say, look, that's your dad's sword. What are you going to do about it? He's got your dad's sword. This is going to lead to a fight. The one young man will fight the other young man. Someone will be killed. They'll run off into the woods, and then the whole fight will start all over again. The very wedding ceremony that was meant to end the feud will be the occasion where the feud begins again. That's what Beowulf sees. That's what Hrothgar refuses to see. So then we fast forward to the old Beowulf, and it's interesting. There's a sort of theme in the poem about young people being able to see more clearly what things are actually like than the old people who, the Hrothgar, the old Beowulf, who get kind of settled down and kind of start to think that they know a thing or two. They've ruled over a kingdom peacefully for long enough. They think that they can handle it. But, that's not the case. In his old age, Beowulf becomes a lot like Hrothgar, and he starts to think that he can control and contain and prevent cycles of violence. He thinks that he, by himself, can go and kill that dragon. He says to his men, "Remain here on the barrow, safe in your armor, to see which one of us is better in the end, at bearing wounds in a deadly fray. This fight is not yours, nor is it up to any man except me to measure his strength against the monster or to prove his worth. I shall win the gold by my courage, or else mortal combat, doom of battle, shall carry your lord away. Beowulf is seeking to contain the fight. He doesn't want his men to get killed. He doesn't want to cause death. He just wants to take care of this dragon and eliminate the threat. And he thinks he can do it by himself. Another way that Beowulf is like Hrothgar is that his very effort to save his people and protect them ends up being the thing that leads to their destruction. It was Hrothgar's very effort to protect his people from the feud with Ingeld that led him to marry his daughter Freyawaru to him, and then that wedding led to the destruction of Heorot. So also does Beowulf's very effort to kill the dragon, successful effort we should add, lead to the doom of his people because he is killed at the same time. The Franks and the Frisians, as Wiglaf says, the Swedes, they are all going to cross the borders of the yachts and attack in force when they find out that Beowulf is dead. Beowulf's effort to kill the dragon demonstrates a similar, I suppose, lack of awareness of what was going to happen that Hrothgar's efforts to marry his daughter to Ingeld did. You could see ahead of time that it wasn't going to work, but they tried to do it anyway. Now, it may sound to you like I'm being a little harsh towards Hrothgar and Beowulf. I mean, they were both just trying to do the right thing. They were both doing their best, and fair enough. But what the poem's end really makes clear about the entire thing is that in the world of Beowulf, and, in our world too, there is really nothing you can do about cyclical violence except to mourn its victims. Everything you try to do to stop it will, more likely than not, it will just start the whole thing over again. Again, remember these final words about Beowulf. The yacht people, Beowulf's hearth companions, sorrowed for the lord who had been laid low, and they said that of all the kings upon the earth he was the man most gracious and fair-minded, the kindest to his people, and the keenest to win fame. He is, as we're told in these final lines, about as good a king upon the earth as you can expect, right? He was gracious, he was fair-minded, he was kind to his people, he did everything right, he was incredibly strong. He ripped the arms off of monsters, he killed dragons. And yet even Beowulf, even this great hero, could not, in the end, prevent cycles of violence from consuming his people. That's just the way it is upon the earth. We can read perhaps a Christian message and a hope for heaven that even though our world is like this, perhaps it's not that way in heaven. But at the end of the day, the poem makes it quite clear that our world is like this. Cycles of violence are unavoidable, and that is one of the major themes of the poem Beowulf.